All right, thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Dr. Marlena Lester, and I'm the Director of Advising here within the College of Engineering at Virginia Tech. I have with me today my colleagues from Career and Professional Development who are going to talk to us about the career support for you as an incoming College of Engineering student, but also just a student at Virginia Tech in general. This Q&A session is part of our virtual academic advising and course registration process, or also known as orientation for us. So for those of you who are attending live, you'll be able to use the Q&A feature toward the end to ask questions. We can answer them either verbally or type in responses to you. And then what we will also do is we'll post this recording on our orientation website afterwards, barring any technical difficulties. So what I'll do now is turn over to my colleagues and let them do their introductions. But thank you all so much for joining us today.
All right, thank you, Marlena. I'm Anya Work. I'm an assistant director in career and professional development, and I serve as a liaison for the College of Engineering as well as the Cranwell International Center. And I will turn it over to Janine to introduce herself before we get started.
Thank you, Marlena and Anya. I am Janine Meadows, and I currently serve as the enrollment coordinator. Sorry, I seem to have a frog in my throat. So I serve as the enrollment coordinator for the Cooperative Education and Internship Program. And so we're happy to see you all today.
All right, thank you, Janine. So this afternoon, we're just going to talk a little bit about career exploration, some resources to help you with that exploration, and some different ways that you can pursue experiential learning opportunities both on and off campus. So when you're thinking about doing some exploration and different, self-reflection, different majors, different careers, I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into each of these a little bit later in the presentation. But through our office, you have access to a lot of different self-assessments to learn a little bit more about your interests, your personality, your skills, your values, and that can really help guide you to different career fields that you might be interested in. Our office can also help you explore different majors, whether that's within the College of Engineering, or maybe you decide, maybe you want to add on another major, change your major, add on another minor. And we can talk to you about how does that fit into your career goals. And then lastly, we have a ton of resources for you to research different jobs, different career fields, as well as different job markets to learn a little bit more about, what's going on in your field today. So I think that you all should be able to use the chat now, but I thought it would be nice to maybe start off with a little bit of an activity. And so this is something that we've done in the past called Major Match. So as you can see, the job titles in the left-hand column, and then there are our majors in the right-hand column. And so I'm wondering if there are those of you out there that feel like, you know what, I feel like I can kind of tell which job titles match to which majors. And so I'm going to give you all a moment to put that in the chat. If the chat doesn't work, that's totally fine. I'll give you the answers anyway, but I wanted to give you all a moment to kind of brainstorm individually and maybe put some answers in the chat. Okay, and Marlena also just said that you can use Q&A for your answers. I know sometimes it may take a moment to kind of think about things, or maybe you're just like, just give me the answer. And as a caveat, you can use the same major more than once. Maybe that's a little bit of a hint for this activity. All right, well, I'll go ahead and give you all the answers. So the answer is that every single one of these job titles belongs to an aerospace engineering major, somebody who had their degree in aerospace. Now, what does that mean? Why am I showing you all this? I think that sometimes, students, especially who maybe feel like they're in a more specialized field, like our major, like aerospace engineering, they feel like they're pigeonholing themselves into a particular career and that they're not going to have different opportunities if they change their mind or that sort of thing. But as you can see, there's a lot of different options regardless of what major you choose. And there are a ton of transferable skills within engineering. And what matters the most is the type of experience that you get. And we're going to, again, talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. So when we talk about experience, Janine's going to talk a little bit more about internships and co-ops, but there's a lot of different ways to get involved and gain experience that's going to help set you up for different careers that you might be interested in. So we have a lot of different professional associations that are discipline-based as well as identity-based. I work with a lot of students who are a part of the Society of Professional Hispanic Engineers. And students that I work with who are in these different professional associations have shared with me that it's a great opportunity to build your community, to learn more about your field, and get connected to different internships and even full-time job opportunities. And other ways to kind of expand your community are through engineering-based fraternities and sororities, as well as being an ambassador or mentor. A lot of our students become involved in undergraduate research, whether that is on campus with a faculty in a lab. We have a campus in Roanoke, the Fralin Biomedical Institute, and a lot of biomedical engineering students work with them, or maybe it's a lab off campus. College of Engineering has engineering-specific study abroad programs, and again, it's a great opportunity to learn more about engineering outside of the US, as well as expand your knowledge of different cultures. And then lastly, I work with a lot of students who are part of different project teams. There are quite a few engineering teams on campus, whether that is you're building different cars or even building different planes. And there are quite a few employers who actually will, recruit from these different teams. So it's not a formal internship, but a lot of employers are pulling from those project teams. And so before I turn it over to Janine, again, I want to kind of reiterate this importance of experience. So yes, it's really important to have a strong foundational academic background, but if you think about it, yes, on your resume, you're going to have your education, but what is taking up the most space? It's your experience. So it's really important to be mindful and thoughtful about the opportunities that you pursue while you're at Virginia Tech. And I'm going to turn it over to Janine.
Thank you, Anya. Well, the Cooperative Education and Internship Program has been around at Virginia Tech for a long time. We're actually in our 71st year. And so the data that you see here is our spring enrollment. We have 2 enrollment options for students. And here, the CEP 4084, that is a full-time work program. This is where students are working 32 to 40 hours per week. Our enrollment numbers are down since COVID, and they're slowly coming back up, but in the spring semester, we just haven't quite gotten back up there. So we're hoping to see those numbers increase over time. As you can see, out of the 89 students who participated in a full-time work experience, that 68 of those students were first-time enrollments, which means they went out for their very first work term. And then we had 21 students who actually re-enrolled in the program for a multiple term experience. The other enrollment option that we have is part-time work, and that can be 4 to 31 hours per week or over a limited time. So let's say that you take on a part-time internship that lasts maybe 4 weeks. So our student enrollment for a 3084 course was 13 for the spring semester. 5 of those were first-time enrollments, and then we had 8 students who actually went out on a multiple rotation experience. And here I've included a little bit of salary information for you. As you can see, we had a lot more students report salary to us who were enrolled in the full-time program. The minimum here was $15 per hour, the maximum $40 an hour. And the median was $22.50. We didn't get as much data that we would have liked on the part-time work experiences, but you can see here that the median salary for a student having an internship working part-time was $26 an hour. And below, you'll see some employing organizations. Now, a lot of these employers we've worked with for a very long time. Volvo Trucks is somewhat local to our area. They're up in Dublin, Virginia, which is not too far from Blacksburg. Moog is also a local employer. And then you can see that we have some of very well-known employers, ExxonMobil, GE, Walt Disney, DuPont. And we have on this list, we actually have two other employers that are in the Blacksburg area, and that's Alltech. They're located in Roanoke, Virginia. And that's about 40 or 45 minutes from Blacksburg. And then Peraton is right here in the Corporate Research Center at Virginia Tech. So this just shows you that you do not have to travel far away and leave campus to have a work experience. You can find some local employers who are hiring our students.
And then, let's see, and then Jean, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about some of the end results that you have seen from the co-op, or I can certainly go over it if you would prefer.
If you want to, that's perfectly fine.
Sure. All right. So as Janine was talking about, there's a lot of opportunities to do co-ops as well as internships. And I mean, you could really, it's an opportunity to apply what you're learning in the classroom into the real world and really be able to think about, like, what am I liking about these experiences? What don't I like about that? And kind of help clarify your career objectives. You might have gone in really thinking like, I really want to work for NASA. And then you get there and you're like, maybe I want to do something else, and that's okay. What's really nice about this program is that you're enrolled in a class and you are paired up with a coach. So a lot of us in the office serve as career coaches for students in the co-op program, and you get feedback on different professional competencies from your employer as well as from folks in our office. So it's a really super helpful program. But to kind of hit home that importance of professional skills and professional competencies, it's really important to gain just general work experience and kind of know how to navigate a workplace and develop professional skills. I meet with different engineering employers that talk about, yes, those technical skills are super important, but what is sometimes missing either from experience or the way that students talk about their experience are more of those soft skills. So things like communication, teamwork, problem solving, those are things that sometimes engineering students don't think to talk about. And yes, again, want to have those technical skills, but you also have to be able to work with people. So, we can talk to you about different ways to get that experience, as well as how do you talk about that experience on your resume, in a cover letter, or during an interview. Now, I'm thinking about who hires Hokies. We just threw up a kind of the main employers that have hired Hokies over the past couple of years. And you might be wondering, like, this is all great, this looks super impressive, but how do you get in touch with some of these employers? Because that's really important to start building those connections with these employers. So there are a few different ways that you can do that. There are career fairs, which for College of Engineering, those are happening pretty early in the fall. There are some in the spring. And even if you're a first-year student, I would still encourage you to attend those career fairs, because one, we are seeing more and more first-year students go for internships. It's also just a great opportunity to start building those relationships with employers, because what we know is the number one way that people find out about internship opportunities and full-time opportunities is through networking. So those relationships that you're building are so crucial. Some other ways to get connected to employers, which I'll touch on this one a little bit more in depth in a moment, is a platform called Handshake. And that's a way that you can find out about different employers as well as different info sessions that they might be hosting on campus. A lot of times employers will come to campus for on-campus interviews. So that's another opportunity to connect with them, or they will have info sessions. So it might not necessarily be an interview situation, but it's an opportunity for you to learn more about an employer and to get to meet them. Now, yes, a lot of our students do go into the industry after graduation, but a lot of our students also go on to graduate school. And I think a lot of times students don't think of our office as a place where you could go talk to somebody about graduate school. But I encourage you, if you start thinking about, I think I maybe want to go on to some type of graduate program, to talk to our office and kind of talk about what you're thinking, what are some of your interests, and we can help you research a little bit in different programs. We can also work with you on your personal statement. So yes, there's the writing center, and it's great to get different opinions on your writing sample, but our office is a resource for you as you are developing your application materials for your graduate program. And then these are some of the career development resources that I talked about that I referenced at the very beginning of this presentation. And just to go through a few of these, all of these can be accessed through our main website, which is career.bt.edu. But the first couple, Type Focus and Tradeify, are self-assessments that you can take, again, to learn a bit more about your interests, personality, values. CareerShift is a great job search engine because it's pulling in job postings from across the internet, and it's a more centralized location. What can I do with this major? It's exactly what it sounds like. You can search for your major and you can see, okay, what are some different areas that people work in who have my major? There are links to different professional development sites or professional organization sites, as well as different job postings. Candid Career is nice because it's almost like recorded informational interviews. So a great way to find out about different career fields is to actually talk to the people that are doing the things that you might want to do, but maybe you don't have the time, or maybe you're just not quite ready to reach out to somebody. And if you go to Candid Career, you can hear people talk about their jobs. What do they like about it? What are some challenges with that job? And what did they do to get to that position? Interview Stream is a really great resource because we do encourage you to make appointments with us to talk about the interview process, to do mock interviews. But Interview Stream is a great resource if, let's say, you get a call for an interview the next day, and then it's the evening and it gets to be midnight, and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to practice for this interview. This resource is available to you 24/7. And then lastly, Going Global. This is probably the #1 site or resource that I talk to international students about. It's also super helpful for domestic or international students who are interested in opportunities abroad. But for international students, if you are curious about companies that have hired students on OPT, which is the optional practical training, or who have provided H-1B visas, this is a great resource to take a look at. And then I know I referenced Handshake a little bit, so I'll give a bit of a plug. So this is the way that you make an appointment with our office. And I encourage you to complete your profile, because if you make it public to employers, employers can find you and you might be recruited for different opportunities. It's an opportunity for you to search for different opportunities, whether that is on-campus jobs, local jobs, internships, and co-op positions. You can register for employer or CPD events. So I know I mentioned those info sessions. A lot of those are advertised through Handshake, and they do require some kind of registration. And then lastly, I encourage you to join the Student Internship and Co-op Network. And I put the link there. And I think, let me put the link in the chat before I forget. I think I have it copied and pasted. Yes, I do. So I just put that in the chat. And that's a really great resource because you'll get emails about different internships and co-ops. Folks in Janine's team also host different programs that are really helpful to talk about different opportunities and how to prepare for different internships. So it's just a really great resource, and I encourage you to join that.
I agree with that, Anya. We also, if employers contact us and they're looking for students and they have a short turnaround, they often contact us, and we help those partner employers by advertising their jobs or letting students know who are in that internship and co-op network. And so if you have had trouble finding a job and you've just kind of given up, you may hear of something through the network that you might be interested in. So, and you can unsubscribe from that list at any time.
All right, Janine. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So as Janine said, you know, you kind of have some additional opportunities if you join that network and employers are really needing somebody quickly, then that can be another way to find opportunities as well. And you know what, that's actually all that we had for you. So I am glad to stick around for questions. We have our contact information up there. But yeah, we have plenty of time, so we're glad to stick around and answer any questions that have come up for you.
Thank you so much for going through all of those details. So like Anya and Janine mentioned, feel free to use the Q&A feature in this webinar to ask any specific questions you have. I will say I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today and address all of those services. I learned a lot, which, you know, I shouldn't learn a lot from these sessions, but I did. So I really appreciate that. I have some few questions to kind of kick us off, if that's okay. When you talked a little bit about Handshake, I know that that's the method that students can make appointments with you in career and professional development. And there is a lot of resources for students, not only for you in career and professional development, but also in the academics and student affairs. If we were to say Handshake as their primary resource for right now, what is the one thing you would want students who are in this session to walk away saying that they've done or accomplished? Would it be to set up that profile like you mentioned, or would it be to join the co-op or that co-op network? What is your one piece of advice you'd like to share if it seems a little bit overwhelming right now?
Yeah, I mean, my first instinct is all of the above. But I think I'm a true I really try to think about, okay, what's probably the most time consuming thing? You should probably do that first. And so I would think that maybe the profile is probably what's going to take a good amount of time. So that might be the first thing to tackle, but definitely leave that little, you know, that network or being able to job search on your to-do list. But I would maybe say create your profile first. And Janine, I don't know if you have other thoughts, but that's what I'm thinking. Just kind of go with what is going to take you the most time first.
Yeah. Now, going into a large job search database like Handshake can be overwhelming. And so what you might want to do is schedule an appointment through Handshake to meet with one of our career advisors, have your resume looked at. Remember that when recruiters are looking at resumes, they only spend like 3 to 6 seconds on a resume before they move it to the next pile. And so you really want your resume to be the best representation of you. And so to tag on what Anya had to say about filling out your profile, get your resume up there. And be sure to keep it updated, because employers get frustrated if they contact students and they're like, oh, well, I've already found a job, so I'm no longer searching. So be sure to keep your profile updated. And also you can set up a job agent. So if you do that, if you take the time to do that, anytime that an employer posts a position where you match the qualifications, you'll get notifications from that. And so that may help you to cut down the sheer volume of opportunities that you may have to review when you're looking for a job.
Yeah, thank you, Janine. Yeah, I would, to kind of piggyback off of that, Janine makes a great point. You might be going in to create your profile and you're like, I don't know what to put on there. So yes, meetings with somebody from our office can kind of help you do that. I believe there is also a recording of kind of Handshake how-tos on our website. And so that might also be really helpful to take a look at, maybe even before you make an appointment with our office, because I'm a huge supporter of the flipped process or flipped approach. So there's a lot of great resources on our website. But yeah, Janine makes a great point. If you're not really sure what to put on your Handshake profile, come talk to us as well.
Thank you both for those responses. I think, you know, one of the things that you mentioned in the talk also was a little bit about some of the career fairs that would be up and coming for students. And you also shared that as early as your first semester in the College of Engineering, you'll be invited to career fairs. And one of the major career fairs that we have in engineering is going to be Engineer Expo. And that's going to be right in the September. So as soon as you start here as a student, you'll be able to go to Engineering Expo. And I couldn't agree more that you should go, even if you're not looking for a job or an internship, just to get the experience. of knowing what it's like to be in that environment, know what it's like to go around and talk to employers and to get a feel for what that's like. So when you are seriously searching for those internships or co-ops or full-time jobs, you're not so overwhelmed by the process. And being able to have some small chat and do your elevator pitch to employers, that kind of thing. For those of you who are in the Q&A today, is there any specific questions that you have for us that you want us to address?
All right, so I can see the Q&A. The question is, how do we sign up appointments with career advisors? Do we simply use the contact information, or is there another way? Great question. So if you go to our website, there's going to be a link for Handshake. And so Handshake is how you sign up for appointments with our office. I know for academic advisors, you would use Navigate, so it's a little bit different. But Handshake is how you want to make an appointment. Now, for whatever reason, you have some challenges with making an appointment online, you can also call our front desk and they will also help you make an appointment.
Absolutely. And another thing about Handshake is the more information you put into it when you're completing your profile, the smarter it works for you. And so once you go in there to schedule an appointment, Handshake is going to look at all of the things that you've added to your profile, and it will select the advisors that work with your particular majors. And so you'll only see openings with those advisors. Of course, if someone recommends another advisor to you, or you want to see another advisor for some reason, you certainly can call our main office number and someone can help you schedule that appointment as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So one of the things that I learned from today's session was the tool Interview Stream. And you briefly talked about that as that 24/7 kind of support for people who are looking to go into the interview maybe the next day and haven't really prepared. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that particular tool does or resource?
Yeah, so our person that really oversees that, she probably would know a whole lot more than I do. But so there's a few different ways that you can use it. So the biggest thing is like, yeah, you practice your interview, but like, how does that work? You do a recording so you can kind of play it back and see how you answer questions. They can give you interview prompts, or you can if you have interview questions to practice yourself. So there's a little bit of kind of choose your own adventure, but it's mainly you record yourself. You can kind of see like, okay, am I moving my hands a lot? Am I saying a lot? Kind of what's kind of going back through the interview and seeing if there's anything that you need to maybe revise before the real deal.
That's really cool, because I know I've been out of college for quite some time, and some of these tools have definitely enhanced over the years. So that's really was a really intriguing thing for me to learn about today. And also to learn your recommendations on the Handshake, setting up your resume, and some of those things. I want, because of the nature of our college and where the majority of our first time in college students are admitted under general engineering with intent to pursue a discipline, we do sometimes have a large proportion of students who are really unsure what area they want to go into, unsure what major they want to pursue. And of course, we do have students who are already admitted to the programs, like our transfer students who might be on the call today, or students who are already in building instruction. But for those students who are out there kind of feeling overwhelmed with the choice of discipline, do you have any recommendations for that kind of self-exploration, major exploration resources that you would recommend as starting points?
Yeah, well, I mean, shout out to College of Engineering, because I really like the Explore Engineering page. I think that has a ton of great resources, and I do think it's in more kind of like manageable bite-sized portions. It's not like an overwhelming amount of information about each major, but I think that's a great resource. Quite frankly, that's one of the resources that I used as I got acclimated with the college. But yeah, sometimes it really is overwhelming. And I think that some of those self-assessments can be super helpful. The one that we really push is Type Focus. So that's a 45, I think it's there's multiple assessments in it, and I think all of them together take about 45 minutes. So it's not even a huge time commitment. But I think that that's a great resource to kind of look a little bit more at, let me learn a little bit more about myself, about my interests, my personality, what are my values, and that can kind of help you hone in on some different career fields and really give you that vocabulary to go out and search for different things. Another resource that I really like, if you're just kind of completely lost, or you kind of might be like, all right, I think I'll know when I see it. There's a site called mynextmove.org, and I can put that in the chat. And that's another great resource to do a little bit of exploration. There's that what can I do with that major site that I mentioned. One thing I will say is because and also Candid Career. So as you can see, there's a ton of different resources that you can take a look at. And I encourage you to kind of pace yourself a little bit, because it can, even just looking at these resources can be overwhelming. So kind of be careful with pacing yourself, looking at these different resources. But Marlena also brings up a great point is, if you're able to kind of look at some of these resources before you make an appointment with us, we can really make the most of our time and talk about what you found. Because sometimes we spend a lot of time with students kind of like showing them the different resources, because at least the way that I kind of advise is I really want to show students how to find these opportunities and not necessarily like tell them, what to do. So I think being able to look at some of these resources before coming to us is a great way to explore different majors and careers.
And I really like how your website is kind of broken down into sections for what you're really searching for. If you're looking for self-exploration things, or if you're looking for that resume support, or you're looking for more full-time employment, and also just the tools that are there to help you with sample resumes, sample cover letters. It's a really good resource. I find myself referencing it anytime that I'm on a job search or looking for update, just refreshing my own personal materials on what is a good way to format your materials and the way that it should be outlined for positions. So like I said, I've learned a lot today on some of the resources that you have here today. What I would like to also ask a little bit about is more about the co-op and internship space, Janine. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what students should kind of, if you could have your crystal ball and you would say, okay, I'd love for you to know this about the co-op and internship program. Is there anything additional you'd like to share there?
Well, to sort of further along the conversation that we just had, getting a co-op or an internship is a great way for you to try out a career field prior to graduation. So, often students don't search for co-op and internship opportunities until they're in their junior or senior year, and that's perfectly fine. That is great. But the earlier you get started, the more career fields you can test out. You might wonder, how would I be working in a really small organization versus a really large organization? Do I want to be in sales? Do I want to be on a manufacturing floor? I mean, there are so many different unanswered questions. And so having that work experience really gives you the option to reflect on those work experiences and see how they might help you to make future career plans. So I would say start early. And you certainly can come in at any point and talk to an advisor about starting to look for work experience or when would be a good time. You also should check in with your academic advisor. Academic advisors will help you look at your plan of study and then your thoughts on when would be a good time for you to take on a work opportunity, especially if you're planning to take a semester off to work in a full-time position. And so check with your academic advisor even before you start looking. So you'll know when you're talking to employers, this is a semester that I could work. So then you can apply for jobs during those semesters. And we're your safety net. And so this program is formally recognized by the university. Your work experience is noted on your transcript. And it's only a $75 enrollment fee to be involved in the program. And we provide career coaching to you all throughout the work experience. So we're going to be there to help you through any complicated issues or just general career decision-making questions that you might have while you're in the workspace, because not everybody goes to work and is like, oh, I've been here, 2 months and I love this work. They might say, oh, I really have found that I do not want to do this. And so we're here to give you that coaching and guidance to get you through that work experience and start planning for the next work opportunity in a different area, a field of interest, something that you would like to do and get experience with in an additional career field. And so just remember that we have a very passionate staff who care about students and care about their success. And we want to help you all along the way. And, we're going to teach you how to do things. We're going to teach you how to search for a job. We're going to teach you how to design your resume. We're going to teach you how to talk to employers about past work experience. Because, those things are going to be important to you when you start looking for full-time jobs. And so I don't know, Marlena, is there anything else?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, the additional details. And I think, one thing that I wanted to emphasize from our conversation today too, though, is that often engineering students think that they don't have the time to be able to do these co-ops and internships. But I think we should really emphasize that that's really going to be key to finding that full-time job longer term, especially in some of our disciplines that might be more saturated as far as the number of people trying to look for employment in a particular area. That additional experience in an internship or a co-op is going to really set that candidate apart from others who don't have those experiences. And knowing that we are well equipped to handle that academic planning side of things for determining what is the best semester to take those opportunities to get that real world experience. I can't emphasize how many times I've heard those from career fair receptions or things from employers where they'll talk to us about, like, the students really need the experiences in order to be a really good candidate for this area.
Yes. And, I tell students a lot, you're not only going to be going up against fellow Hokies when you start looking for a full-time job, you're going to be going up against students who have, maybe a year and a half good solid work experience, because some of our peer institutions require students to have work experience. Now, we're not quite there yet, but I think that's kind of the direction that we might be heading into. And so,
well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I actually went to a school that did require it. And I was going to share that in my own undergrad experience, every time I had an internship or a requirement that made me get real world experience as part of the curriculum, it really helped hone in the specialization or area I wanted to work in, right? So it was for me, was a life-changing directions, right? Of every time I had an internship of this agency versus that agency. And I did a lot, undergrad and my master's and my PhD programs, as far as those additional programs or experiences that really helped shape what I was deciding to go into. So I think that's very important to kind of outline that. That's something our dean shares a lot with students about her own experience with being in engineering, that the coursework was not that enticing for her early on, but going out doing a co-op really kind of helped refocus that real true interest and passion in the particular area that she ended up getting her degree in. So that's always nice to hear those stories about those life-changing opportunities that a co-op or internship can have for a student.
That's exactly right. Dean Ross has an absolute great story about her co-op past and about how it formed her to where she is today, the dean of the College of Engineering at Virginia Tech. And so, you just never know where your opportunity will lead you for the future.
So we look like we don't have any more questions in the Q&A, but if you do have some last minute questions and you're hanging out with us, feel free to pop those in quickly. But one thing that I wanted to also highlight is something we talked a little bit about: employers. So we might have more than just students on this live Q&A today. We might have some family members or parents across the board. And some of them are also potential employers, right? So if employers do have postings of jobs and they're looking for someone to fill their next role, what's the best way for those employers to get connected with your office to be able to share those postings of jobs and so forth? Like, is there a particular protocol you would like for them to follow?
Yeah, so I would contact our employer relations team. And I can stop sharing my screen and actually grab their information. But yeah, so we do have a team of employer relations team. And so I would contact them to get things on Handshake, to set up info sessions. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that they can do to get employers connected to students. But give me a moment and I can grab some of their contact.
No, the session today really made me think about, I get lots of postings from employers, and it might be a good way for me to also refer those employers to the employer relations team for future job postings so that they are in that network and they're on Handshake. And that's a great way for us to promote that resource university-wide.
Yeah. Let's see.
And Becca Scott, who is our co-op and internship program leader, she and I meet with a lot of employers who are wanting to start co-op and internship programs within their organization because they are using these programs to make full-time hires, because it's a great way for them to get to know you and to get to know your skills. And so a lot of employers who hire co-ops and interns will make students full-time job offers. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% guaranteed, but I am saying that the majority of employers that we talk to, they do use their programs as a hiring pipeline. So please keep that in mind as well.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all so much for being with me today and hosting this session as part of our virtual academic advising and course registration process. I really appreciate it, and we appreciate all of you who hung out with us today in this session live. If you are watching the recording afterwards, feel free to reach